Welcome, everyone. We are diving into The Scaffold Effect by Harold S. Koplewicz.
Oh, good choice.
It's a book that looks at this big question,
Hmm.
how to raise resilient, self-reliant, and secure kids in, well, today's world.
Right.
Koplewicz uses this metaphor of scaffolding, which I find really interesting. It's
Yeah.
from construction
Oh, yeah.
to illustrate how parents can support their children's development
I see.
without, you know, holding them back.
Without stifling them.
Exactly.
Got it.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this whole concept of scaffolding.
Well, the main idea is that just like a scaffold provides that temporary support
Right.
for a building under construction,
Right.
parents provide a framework for their kids
Okay.
to develop emotionally,
I see.
socially, and behaviorally.
So you're giving them the tools and guidance they need to kind of build themselves up.
Exactly.
That means
It's all about empowerment.
it is empowering. I mean,
Yeah.
the book talks about this statistic.
Right.
2/3 of children
Wow.
with anxiety and depression don't actually get the help they need.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Oh.
And it's because of misinformation and stigma.
It's true. There's a lot of stigma around mental health.
There is.
It's hard for parents to know where to turn
It is.
and when to seek help.
So how do we as parents avoid falling into that trap of
Overprotection.
overprotecting, thanks,
Yeah.
instead of teaching them valuable coping mechanisms?
Well, that's where this idea of self-scaffolding comes in.
I see.
You know, before parents can effectively support their children,
Right.
they need to build a solid foundation for themselves.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, the book gives this example of Lisa, she's a mom, who had a really rough week at work
Okay.
and ended up yelling at her son's teacher
Oh, no.
over this last-minute project.
So it's like that stress spills over
Exactly.
into our parenting.
Right.
It'd be really hard to separate the two,
It can.
especially when we are feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
So this just shows how important it is to take care of our own well-being.
Absolutely.
But I think for a lot of parents,
Yeah.
finding the time and energy for self-care can be a real struggle.
It's a huge challenge.
It is a challenge.
But it's essential.
Prioritizing our own needs
Okay.
is not selfish.
Okay.
It's actually essential
essential
to
work.
effective parenting.
I never thought of it like that.
You know, when we model self-care for our children,
Uh,
we're teaching them to value their own well-being.
that makes sense.
Imagine the impact of seeing you taking breaks
Okay.
to meditate
Mm.
or exercise
Right.
or even just enjoy some quiet time.
I see. I see.
It sends a powerful message.
That's powerful. Yeah.
It normalizes self-care.
It does.
Yeah.
I love that idea. But putting it into practice with, well, kids of all ages can be overwhelming.
How does this self-scaffolding concept look different for parents of, let's say, younger children
Okay.
versus teenagers?
So for parents with kids under 12,
Okay.
Koplewicz suggests focusing on physical breaks.
Physical breaks.
Yeah, like just taking a moment
Okay.
to step away,
Okay.
breathe deeply,
Right.
maybe do a quick meditation.
Oh, I like that.
Even a 5-minute walk
Mm-hmm.
around the block can help reset
Reset.
your
yeah.
mood and your energy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. It's about giving yourself a moment
Okay.
to recharge.
And what about those of us navigating the teenage years,
Oh, the teenage years.
which can be a whole other level of intensity?
For parents of teenagers,
Yeah.
Koplewicz recommends
Yep.
emotional breaks.
Emotional breaks. So.
Yeah, so instead of focusing on, physically stepping away,
Right.
it's more about shifting your emotional state.
Got it.
He recommends grounding techniques,
Oh, interesting.
like asking yourself,
Yeah.
what's happening right now?
Is everything okay in this very moment?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it helps you shift your attention away
Right.
from, the drama of adolescence
Love that drama.
and find a sense of calm
Calm.
amidst the chaos.
That's so important because I feel like parental burnout,
It's a real thing.
it is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's something that we don't talk about enough.
Absolutely. And it can have serious consequences.
So the book mentions Pamela.
Oh, right.
She's a mom who relies on excessive screen time
Oh, I know so many parents like that.
to de-stress after a long day.
It's a common coping mechanism.
But it's not always healthy.
No, it's not.
I'm curious, how common is parental burnout?
Studies suggest
Okay.
that as many as 1 in 12 parents
1 in 12. Wow.
experience burnout.
That's a lot.
It is, and I think the pandemic
Mhm.
really exacerbated this issue.
I think so too.
The book actually provides a helpful table.
Oh, okay.
It outlines the differences between normal parenting struggles.
Just problematic behaviors and signs of parental burnout disorder.
Wow. So there are different levels.
There are. It's important to recognize the difference.
Right.
Because, feeling occasionally frustrated with your children is normal.
Of course.
But consistently feeling resentful,
Okay.
emotionally distant, or completely depleted
Right.
could be a sign of something more serious.
I see. So it's important to pay attention to those patterns.
It is.
And seek help
Absolutely.
if needed.
Yeah, you don't have to suffer in silence.
No, you don't.
There are resources available.
That's good to know.
Right. It's about taking care of yourself.
It is.
So you can better take care of your kids.
Now, the book also talks about the importance of challenging
our own biases.
Our biases, yeah.
As parents.
Exactly.
That's a tough one.
It is tough. I mean.
But it's so important.
Right.
Koplewicz uses this example of Claire, a mom who had these negative assumptions about her son, Daniel. She kept seeing him as this problem child.
Yeah.
And it really affected how she interacted with him.
I could see how that would happen.
It's a classic example of confirmation bias.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So confirmation bias is basically our tendency to look for and favor information that confirms our existing beliefs.
Even if those beliefs are inaccurate.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So Claire's belief that Daniel was a problem child led her to focus only on his negative behaviors.
So she's not seeing the whole picture.
Exactly. She's missing all the good stuff.
Right.
And this kind of thinking can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
How so?
Well, if you constantly focus on a child's shortcomings, you might inadvertently reinforce those behaviors.
So it's like we're creating these narratives about our children that might not reflect who they truly are.
It's like putting them in a box.
Exactly.
And then they start to believe that's who they are.
And then they act accordingly.
It's a vicious cycle.
So how do we combat this tendency to dwell on the negative?
Koplewicz talks about a technique called overlearning. It's basically intentionally focusing on positive behaviors to counteract the negativity bias.
So you're basically retraining your brain to look for the good.
Right. So instead of just, noticing when your teenager forgets to take out the trash, you make a point of acknowledging when they do something helpful.
I like that.
Like cleaning their room.
Without being asked.
Exactly. And instead of just a quick thank you, you really make a point of praising their effort.
So you're making it a big deal.
You are. You're showing them that you noticed and that you appreciate it.
Okay, that makes sense.
You're basically highlighting and reinforcing that positive behavior.
I love that.
It's powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
Yeah, it can really change the dynamic in your relationship.
So speaking of teenagers, the book mentions Stephen. He's a teenager who would argue.
Oh, teenagers love to argue.
And try to get out of doing his homework.
It's a classic power struggle.
It is a classic power struggle.
Yeah.
So how do we, as parents...
Navigate that?
Yeah.
Well, Koplewicz emphasizes the importance of not getting sucked in to those power struggles.
It's so easy to do, though.
It is. But when we engage in those arguments, we're actually giving them what they want.
Which is the attention.
Exactly.
Right, so it's about shifting that dynamic.
It is.
So what's a better approach?
Instead of engaging in an argument, you might say something like, it's not okay to talk to me like that, but I appreciate that you're sitting down at your desk.
So you're acknowledging
their feelings,
but still holding firm on your expectations.
That's a good balance.
It is. It's about being both firm and compassionate.
Firm and compassionate.
Yeah, meeting them where they're at. I like that.
But also holding them accountable.
This ties into another point the book makes. A child's behavior isn't always a reflection of their character.
Oh, that's so important to remember.
It is. It is.
Kids are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Their behavior can change from day to day.
From day to day, yeah.
Even from hour to hour.
So true.
So we can't just label them based on one incident.
There's this story in the book about Victor.
Oh, right, Victor.
He struggled in middle school.
He did, he really did.
But completely transformed his behavior in high school.
He turned things around.
He did. It's because his parents couldn't see past their previous perception of him.
It happens all the time.
Crazy.
Parents get stuck in these narratives.
It's like those biases are so ingrained.
They are.
Even when a child demonstrates, significant growth
It's hard to let go
It is hard.
of those preconceived notions.
Koplewicz reminds us that it's essential to challenge those biases.
Absolutely.
Acknowledge our children for who they are.
Right?
Evolving individual.
Evolving.
Capable of learning and evolving.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's about giving them the space to grow.
It is. It is.
It is.
This brings us to this fascinating concept of the Pygmalion effect.
Oh, yes, the Pygmalion effect.
Which suggests that
our expectations
can actually shape reality.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah, our beliefs have a huge impact.
Huge impact.
On outcomes.
The book mentions a historical example.
Okay.
This study from 1964.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Where teachers' expectations
actually
influenced students' IQ scores.
It's amazing how much our beliefs can influence others.
Yes, it's almost scary.
It is a bit, yeah.
So the Pygmalion effect is basically
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, if we believe in our children's potential, we create an environment where they're more likely to succeed.
So it's like we're setting them up for success.
By believing in them.
By believing in them.
But on the flip side, what happens when parents hold on to those negative perceptions?
That can be really damaging.
Like Claire in the Uck, who believed her son Daniel would always be a problem.
Oh, poor Daniel.
What are the potential long-term consequences?
Well, for the child, it can create this cycle of negativity where they internalize those labels.
Oh, no.
And start believing they're incapable of success.
That's heartbreaking.
It is, and it can have lasting effects.
On their self-esteem.
Exactly.
And their overall well-being.
Exactly. So it's crucial to recognize
when
our own biases are getting in the way.
And seek professional guidance if needed.
Absolutely. Sometimes we need an outside perspective.
So in Daniel's case, it wasn't until his parents sought professional help
that they realized
he had ADHD.
Oh, wow.
With appropriate support and understanding.
He was finally able to thrive.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
It shows the importance of getting the right support.
It does.
For your child's specific needs.
Absolutely.
You know, every child is different.
Every child is different.
And there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
That's so true.
To parenting.
Now, speaking of supporting children through challenges, the book also shares the story of Gwen.
Oh, Gwen,
A teenager who's struggling to process her emotions after a classmate's suicide.
Oh, wow, that's heavy.
It is heavy. So what can parents do to encourage open and honest communication?
I think the most important thing is to create a safe space. Where children feel comfortable sharing their feelings.
Without fear of judgment.
Exactly.
And that goes for kids of all ages.
Absolutely.
But especially teenagers.
Teenagers, they need that space.
They do.
To process their emotions.
So how do we create that safe space?
Well, it starts with being a good listener, really listening.
Without interrupting. Without offering unsolicited advice.
Exactly.
So just being present.
Being present.
Validating their feelings.
Validating their feelings,
Even if we don't agree with them.
Even if we don't agree with them, right?
It's about letting them know.
That
their feelings are heard and understood.
That's so important.
That is so important.
It makes them feel seen.
And
validated.
And that's what they need.
It is.
Especially during those tough times.
Absolutely.
The book also talks about the importance of teaching children.
An emotional vocabulary.
So
they can identify and articulate their feelings.
So instead of just saying, I feel bad, they can say, I feel sad, or I feel angry.
Right, or frustrated or disappointed.
I see. That makes a lot of sense.
It helps them understand and process their emotions.
That's great.
It's a powerful tool.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
But how do you actually start these conversations?
Well, I think it's important to engage with their interests. Use a tone that resonates with them. Yeah, so avoid being too serious. Or preachy. Meet them where they're at. Be authentic.
That's key.
Yeah.
And most importantly,
respect their need for space.
Especially teenagers.
They need their space.
They do.
It's part of their development.
It is.
It's how they figure out who they are.
Right. And we have to respect that.
Absolutely.
Even if it's hard.
It can be hard.
But
it's important.
So, speaking of teenagers.
Oh, here we go.
The book mentions Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan, right.
Whose mom insisted on using his childhood nickname.
Oh, I've been there.
Which created a real communication barrier.
It's like she wasn't seeing him.
For who he is now.
Exactly.
A young man.
Right.
Finding his own identity. It's a good reminder that even seemingly small things
can have a big impact.
On
how teenagers perceive us.
That's so true.
It's all about respect.
It is.
Respecting their individuality.
And recognizing that they're evolving.
Absolutely.
So, are there specific types of conversation starters?
Oh, sure.
That tend to work well with teenagers?
Humor is always a good bet.
Humor, yeah.
Teenagers love to laugh.
They do.
So if you can share a funny meme or reference something they find amusing,
that's a good one.
It can really break the ice.
Yeah, it can lighten the mood.
Exactly, and then you can transition into more serious topics.
So start with something light. Build that rapport. And then go from there.
Exactly.
I like that.
Talking about their interests can also be a good starting point.
So like music or hobbies.
Exactly. Anything that they're passionate about. Yeah.
The key is to find common ground.
And
approach the conversation with genuine curiosity.
Absolutely. Let them know.
Okay.
That you're interested.
Interested in what they have to say.
This makes me think about those inevitable difficult situations
the kids find themselves in.
Yeah, the book gives an example.
Okay.
Where a child calls their parents for help.
Oh, right.
After encountering a drunk driver.
That's scary.
It is scary, and as a parent, you want to be that safe haven for your kids.
You do.
No matter what they're going through.
Absolutely.
So how do we create that
safe space?
Safe space, thank you.
Where they feel comfortable coming to us.
Right.
Even when they've made a mistake.
It's about being non-judgmental. Reassuring and understanding. Even if we are freaking out inside.
Even if we are, right?
Because we want them to know that they can always count on us.
That we're there for them.
To support them.
No matter what. And that's huge.
It is. It's the foundation of a strong parent-child relationship.
Absolutely.
And of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
Technology, which is such a huge part.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere of our lives today, especially for kids.
Especially for kids?
The book actually cites
a study.
A Child Mind Institute study.
Oh, that's a great resource.
It is a great resource about the link. Problematic internet use. And mental health issues.
That's a big concern.
It is a big concern.
With kids spending so much time online.
So
what did the study find?
Well, it revealed a strong correlation between excessive internet use and an increased risk
of anxiety and depression.
And
attention problems.
Wow. So there are real risks. Associated with excessive screen time.
Absolutely.
That's something that we as parents
need to be aware of. And talking to our kids about. Setting limits. Establishing healthy habits.
From an early age.
Exactly.
This reminds me of the issue of over-talking in children.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
The book mentions Xavier.
Right.
A kindergartner who constantly blurted out answers in class.
Some kids are just naturally more talkative.
Right. But how do we know when it's normal?
Versus
when it might be a sign
of something else.
Right?
That's a great question.
And the book actually provides a helpful table.
Oh, I like these tables.
That distinguishes between normal chattiness, problematic talking, and potential signs
of a disorder. Yeah.
So it helps us kind of assess.
It gives you a framework. For understanding the behavior.
So it's not just about the talking itself.
Right.
It's about the context. Is the talking disruptive?
Right.
Is it interfering with their learning?
With their social development.
Exactly. So it's about looking at the bigger picture.
Always look at the bigger picture.
What about those teenagers?
Oh, the teenagers.
Who go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And seem to clam up completely.
With the silent treatment. Yeah, that can be tough.
How should parents approach those situations?
Well, I think it's important to remember that teen secrecy is a normal developmental stage.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Not necessarily, no.
It's their way of asserting independence. And establishing boundaries.
Yeah.
So how do we as parents
stay connected without being intrusive?
That's the balance.
It is a delicate balance.
What's the best way to do that?
Well, I think it's important to respect
Okay.
Their need for privacy.
Their need for privacy.
While remaining available.
Okay.
As a sounding board. A sounding board.
When they're ready to talk.
So we're there if they need us.
We're there if they need us.
But we're not forcing the conversation.
Exactly.
Because that will likely backfire.
It will. It will push them further away.
So how do we strike that balance?
It's tough.
It is tough.
But I think it starts with communication.
Communication, maybe.
Letting them know that you're there for them.
Right.
That you love them.
Unconditionally.
And that you respect their space.
Exactly. And that you're not going to pry.
Okay, so it's about building that trust.
Building trust, yeah.
So they feel comfortable coming to us.
When they're ready.
When they're ready.
It's a process.
It is a process.
It takes time and patience.
But it's worth it.
It is so worth it.
To have that strong connection.
Absolutely.
With our teenagers.
That's what it's all about.
So are there specific conversation starters?
Oh, there are.
That work better than others?
Yeah, I think it's important to avoid those generic questions like,
how was your day?
How was your day?
Yeah.
That often lead to one-word answers.
One-word answers, yeah.
So instead,
okay,
try focusing on their interests.
Okay.
Or use humor.
Humor?
Yeah, to break the ice.
Break the ice. You might say something like,
okay,
did you see that hilarious meme about?
Oh, that's a good one.
Or, I heard that new song by your favorite band.
So you're starting with something
that they're interested in.
That they're interested in.
That they can relate to.
Right, and then you can go from there.
Exactly.
I think we've all been there.
Hoping for a deep and meaningful conversation.
Hoping for that deep and meaningful conversation.
Getting a shrug and a fine.
A shrug and a fine, exactly.
It's all about managing those expectations.
Managing those expectations, right?
And remembering that teenagers communicate differently.
Than younger children.
And
that's okay.
It is. It's part of their development.
Now let's delve into empowering children to find their own solutions.
Okay, that's a great segue.
The book gives this example of a child asking for help with a bad grade.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is.
It can be a real trigger.
To jump in and try to fix everything.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
I think we all are.
We want to protect them.
We do.
From pain and disappointment.
But is that always the best approach?
I'm sensing that it's not.
It's not always the best approach.
So what does the book suggest?
Well, Koplewicz talks about this phenomenon.
Okay.
He calls it fix-it parenting.
Fix-it parenting, I like that.
Where we rush in to solve the problem for our children.
So we're not giving them the opportunity.
To figure it out themselves.
And
while it's well-intentioned,
of course,
it can actually hinder their development.
Problem-solving skills.
So they're not learning those essential skills.
They're not.
That they need.
To navigate challenges on their own.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of offering immediate solutions.
Yeah.
What's a better approach?
Try guiding them. Through a process. Of identifying the issue. Brainstorming potential solutions.
I like that.
And making their own decisions.
So they're still involved.
They're very much involved.
In the process. It's a collaborative effort.
Collaborative. I like that.
But ultimately, the decision is theirs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. It's about empowering them.
Empowering them.
To take ownership.
Of their choices.
That's a valuable lesson.
It is.
But how do parents determine the right level of support?
Right, because there are times...
But we do need to step in.
Absolutely. Koplewicz talks about this concept. He calls it the danger zone.
The danger zone,
And these are situations where parental intervention...
Is necessary. To prevent a child...
From experiencing...
Excessive failure. Or distress. Okay, so it's about finding that balance.
It's about finding that balance, yeah.
Between supporting...
And overstepping.
So can you give us a concrete example?
Of how to navigate this...
This balance.
The book tells the story of Emily. A high-achieving student who was crippled by anxiety. About failing.
That's so common, though.
It is, especially in today's competitive environment.
Right. There's so much pressure on kids.
So Emily's mom, Diana, learned to scaffold her daughter by validating her feelings. And reframing her perspective on failure.
So how did she do that?
She said something like, it's okay to be worried about failing. We all experience setbacks.
That's true.
What matters is how we learn from them.
So she's normalizing
failure. And emphasizing the learning opportunity.
I love that approach.
It's about shifting the focus.
Away from and toward growth.
Toward growth and resilience.
And that's what we want.
That's what we want for our kids.
For our kids to be resilient.
To embrace challenges.
Embrace challenges.
And learn from their mistakes.
This reminds me of when I was teaching my grandson to read.
Oh, that's cute.
I used this no wrong guesses approach.
Oh, I love that.
And it created this safe space for him.
To experiment.
With words and Sams.
Without fear of making mistakes.
Without fear of making mistakes. And I think that's so important.
It is. It takes the pressure off.
It does.
And allows them to really explore and learn.
So it's not about being perfect.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about the process.
A process of learning.
Of learning and growing.
So speaking of allowing kids to make mistakes,
yeah,
the book talks about
this common parental pitfall.
Which is swooping in.
Swooping in. I do that all the time.
We all do.
We all do. We want to rescue them.
We want to rescue them.
From those uncomfortable moments.
But sometimes that can backfire.
How so?
Well, the book gives the example of Annie, who did her son Ben's homework for him.
Oh, wow.
Throughout his school years.
I can see how that would create some problems.
It did. Like what? Well, Ben never really learned how to manage his time.
Right.
Or organize his work.
He didn't develop those essential skills.
He didn't.
Because his mom was always swooping in.
Always swooping in.
To rescue him.
To rescue him.
So even though her intentions were good.
Of course.
Her actions actually hindered Ben's development.
They did.
Of independence.
Independence and coping skills.
So it's about letting them struggle a little bit.
Letting them struggle, yeah.
Letting them experience those natural consequences.
Natural consequences.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard to watch.
Because that's how they learn.
That's how they learn.
And grow.
And become more resilient.
So what about those situations where a child experiences rejection? Rejection can be tough.
It can be tough for kids, especially for kids.
The book gives an example
of
a child not getting a part in the school play.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And as a parent, you want to just make it all better.
You do. You want to take away their pain?
But we can't always do that.
We can't.
So what can we do?
Well, the book suggests that we validate their feeling.
Validate their feeling.
So we say something like, I know you're disappointed that you didn't get the part, but I'm proud of you for auditioning.
So we're acknowledging their effort.
We are.
And their disappointment.
Exactly.
And then
we help them reframe the experience.
Reframe the experience. Okay.
So we might say something like, this just means that there's a different opportunity out there.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a better fit for you.
So we're turning it into a positive.
We're turning it into a positive.
I love that.
It's about focusing on the possibilities.
Possibilities, not the limitations.
Exactly.
And that brings us to this important topic.
Grit. Grit, that's a good one.
The book tells the story of Donna.
Donna, the soccer player.
A soccer player who decides to quit.
Much to her parents' dismay.
Much to her parents' dismay.
They had big dreams for her.
They did. But Donna
had other plans.
Donna had other plans, so this highlights for respecting our children's choices.
Even when
don't align with our expectations.
I think a lot of parents struggle with that.
It's hard.
It is hard to let go
of our own aspirations for our children.
Especially when we know
that they have talent.
Right, or potential. But ultimately, it's their life.
It's their life.
And they need to make their own choices.
They do.
Even if those choices
for them down
a different path.
A different path than we envision.
So how can parents differentiate
between healthy encouragement and potentially harmful pressure? Because we do want to encourage our kids.
Of course, we want them to succeed.
But we don't want to push them
to the point.
To the point where
they lose their love.
They lose their love for something.
Or their sense of self.
So it's a delicate balance.
It is a delicate balance.
It is. So what are some signs?
That we might be crossing that line.
Crossing that line, yeah.
Well, if your child is constantly stressed, anxious, or withdrawing from activities they used to enjoy,
that's a red flag.
It's a red flag.
That we might be pushing them too hard. So it's important to pay attention
to those cues.
Right?
And adjust our approach accordingly.
So what about those kids who seem resistant
to trying new things?
The book gives an example of Maria.
Maria, who didn't want to join the math club.
Even though she excelled in math.
Right. So how do we know?
If
it's just a lack of interest. Or something more.
Something more, right.
like social anxiety.
Social anxiety, yeah.
Or a learning disability.
It could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things.
So what's the best way
to approach these situations?
To approach these situations, yeah.
Well, I think it's important to have a conversation.
Conversation, yeah.
With your child.
Okay.
Find out why.
Why they're resistant.
Why they're resistant.
What are their concerns?
Exactly.
Maybe they're afraid of failing.
Or maybe they just don't think it's fun.
Right? Or maybe they're overwhelmed.
With other activities.
So it's about understanding
their perspective.
And then what?
And then working together. To find a solution.
That works for everyone.
I
love that approach.
It's about collaboration.
Collaboration, not coercion.
Exactly.
So we're not forcing them
to do something
they don't want to do.
That they're not ready for.
So how can parents strike that balance?
Between respecting
of the child's choices.
And encouraging them.
To step outside their comfort zone.
That's the sweet spot.
It is the sweet spot.
That's where the magic happens.
So how do we find that sweet spot?
Koplewicz emphasizes honoring commitment. While still allowing room
for growth
and change.
So it's like setting those boundaries. But also being flexible. And adaptable. I like that.
So, for example, if your child wants to quit karate after a few lessons, you might say, I understand you're not enjoying it as much as you thought. However, you committed to finishing the session.
Right.
Let's reevaluate how you feel at the end.
So we're holding them accountable.
To
their commitment.
And
we're also
giving them the space.
To
change their mind.
If they need to. That's a great approach.
It's about teaching them valuable life skills.
It's
responsibility.
And making informed decisions.
I love that.
It's about giving them the tools.
The tools they need.
To navigate the world.
Speaking of navigating the world. I have to share a story.
I love stories.
About my son Joshua, who surprised everyone, deciding to perform a dance routine at a school assembly.
That's awesome.
It was awesome, and I'll admit,
Yeah.
I was initially apprehensive.
Really? Why?
Because Joshua is a pretty quiet and introverted kid.
So you weren't expecting this?
I was not expecting this.
And he surprised you?
He did.
That's great.
It was great, and it was such a good reminder
Yeah.
that sometimes we need to encourage our kids
To step outside.
their comfort zone.
Even
when it's scary.
when it's scary.
Because you never know
What they might discover.
About themselves.
So seeing him take that risk and discover a hidden talent was truly inspiring.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
Good for him.
And he gained so much confidence.
That's huge.
It is huge. And he earned the admiration
of his classmates.
It was a win-win.
It was a win-win.
It was. And it just goes to show that sometimes the best things in life happen when we step outside
of our comfort zone.
And that's a great lesson.
It is a great lesson.
For all of us.
Parents
and kids alike.
Absolutely. Ready for part 3?
Definitely. We've explored a lot in this deep dive into the scaffold effect.
A lot of great insights.
It's given me so much to think about when it comes to, raise my own kids.
It's definitely a thought-provoking book.
As we wrap up this final part, I'm curious about specific strategies for applying these principles in, everyday life.
Sure. Like, what are some things listeners can implement right away?
I'm glad you asked, because I think a lot of parents struggle with finding the right balance between
setting boundaries,
thank you,
yeah,
and allowing their children the freedom to explore and make their own choices.
All right. It's a tough one.
It is tough.
So how does the book address this challenge?
Well, the Scaffold Effect emphasizes that setting limits is not about being controlling or restrictive.
Right.
It's about providing a framework for children to develop self-discipline and make responsible decisions.
I like that.
So the book suggests involving children
in the process, setting boundaries.
Exactly.
So it's not just about laying down the law.
Right. It's about explaining the reasons. Behind the rules.
Yeah.
Offering choices whenever possible.
Choices are important.
They are. It makes them feel like
they have some control.
They have some control over their lives.
Exactly.
So it's about empowering them. To become active participants.
Right.
In shaping their own behavior.
Rather than just, blindly following rules.
Exactly. And that ties into this idea of
Fostering a loving...
Fostering a loving and supportive environment.
Supportive environment, yeah.
So how can parents create
that kind of atmosphere?
That kind of atmosphere where children feel safe to be themselves and
take risks.
Take risks, thank you.
It all starts with unconditional love and acceptance.
Unconditional love and acceptance, that's the foundation.
It is, it's the bedrock.
It's about celebrating their individuality.
You know, recognizing their strengths.
And supporting them
Their
through
challenges?
Challenges, yeah.
You know, life is full of challenges.
It is.
And we need to equip our kids
with the tools.
With the tools to face those challenges.
The book highlights the power of
positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement, focusing on what children are doing well.
Right. Instead of constantly pointing out
their mistakes.
Their mistakes.
Which I think a lot of parents are guilty of.
We all do it.
We all do it.
It's easy to get caught up.
In the negative.
In the negative, yeah.
But when we shift our focus
to the positive, we
create a more positive and supportive environment.
For everyone.
For everyone, exactly.
And this reminds me of that overlearning technique.
Oh, yeah, overlearning.
Where we intentionally highlight and reinforce
positive behavior.
It's such a simple yet powerful shift in mindset.
It really is, and it can make a big difference.
It can.
In how we interact with our kids.
And the book also emphasizes the importance of modeling those behaviors ourselves.
So we're not just telling our kids what to do.
Right. We're showing
them
how to do it.
How to be kind, compassionate, resilient.
Because they're watching us.
They're always watching.
Always watching.
Even when we think they're not.
So we need to be mindful
of our own behavior.
Of our own behavior and how it impacts them.
Absolutely.
The book also offers
some guidance.
Specific guidance
on dealing with
challenging behaviors.
Challenging behaviors, which, let's face it,
every parent faces
at some point.
Tantrums, defiance, lying.
It's all part of the journey.
That's all part of the journey.
But it can be really frustrating.
It can.
So the book encourages us to view these behaviors
as opportunities.
As opportunities for teaching.
For teaching and growth.
Yeah.
Rather than
personal attacks. Because it's not about us.
Right. It's about them.
It's about them.
And their development. So it's about seeing the behavior
as separate
from the child. Recognizing that they're still
learning and
developing
their emotional regulation skills.
And that takes time.
It does.
And patience and consistency.
Consistency is key.
It is. It's about sending clear messages. About what's acceptable.
And what's not.
And
remembering
every
child is different.
So
what works for one child
might not work
for another.
So we need to be
flexible,
adaptable, and willing to experiment
with different strategies.
Until we find what works for our child. One of the things I found most compelling about the scaffold effect is
its emphasis on the long-term goal.
The long-term goal of raising
competent,
and independent individuals.
That's what it's all about.
It's not just about, getting through the day-to-day
struggles of parenting.
It's about equipping our children
with the skills they need.
To
thrive in the world.
The book uses this analogy
of teaching a child to ride a bike.
Oh, I love that analogy.
At first, we provide a lot of support.
We hold on to the handlebars.
We run alongside them.
We're right there with them.
But eventually,
we let go.
And
they're off.
Riding on their own.
Into the world.
It's
a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing.
To watch them soar.
So our role as parents is to
provide that initial
support and guidance.
But ultimately, our goal is to raise children who can
ride through life's challenges.
Independently. And that's a beautiful and empowering vision.
It is. It's about letting go.
And
trusting them. To find their own way.
As we conclude our deep dive into the scaffold effect, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and expertise.
It's been a pleasure.
This conversation has been incredibly valuable.
I hope so.
I'm sure our listeners will find
these strategies and perspectives incredibly helpful.
On their own parenting journeys.
Because we're all in this together.
We are.
Parenting is a lifelong learning process. And there's always room for growth and evolution.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
It is exciting. It's challenging.
It's challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
It is rewarding.
Yeah.
And you know what?
What?
There's no such thing as a perfect parent.
There's no such thing.
We all make mistakes.
And that's okay. That's okay. What matters is that
we learn from those mistakes.
we learn from those mistakes and strive to create that loving and supportive environment
where our children can flourish.
So let's quickly recap.
Okay.
Those 10 key takeaways from the scaffold effect.
One last time. Scaffolding is about providing structure and support.
Okay.
To nurture independence and resilience.
Self-scaffolding is crucial. For parents to
model
healthy coping mechanisms.
And avoid burnout.
Which can negatively impact their children.
Recognizing and challenging our own biases.
Is essential
For creating
that positive
and supportive environment.
For our kids.
Effective communication involves validating our children's feelings.
Teaching them emotional vocabulary
And adapting to their developmental needs.
Right, because they're not little adults.
They have
different needs.
Empowering children to solve problems independently.
Fosters
self-efficacy and reduces dependence on parental intervention.
Accepting failure.
Accepting failure as part of the learning process.
Helps children develop grit
and resilience.
Encouraging them to persevere.
Despite setbacks.
Setting realistic limitations.
Involves
clear communication.
Consistent boundaries.
And appropriate consequences.
That
fit the severity of the behavior.
Modeling healthy behaviors.
And values.
Teaches children.
By example.
Actions
speak louder than words.
They do. Accepting a child's individuality.
It requires letting go
Of our own aspirations.
And embracing
Their unique
strengths and limitations.
And finally,
the ultimate goal of scaffolding
is to raise
confident, competent,
and independent individuals
capable of navigating life's challenges.
Successfully.
Those 10 points.
Offer a wealth of wisdom.
And guidance
For parents
at all stages
of their journey.
So I encourage our listeners
to reflect
on these takeaways
and
consider how they can
incorporate them
into their own unique
parenting styles.
Because there's no one right way to parent.
There isn't. It's about finding what works.
For your family.
Parenting
is a journey. It is. It's an adventure.
And it's one that we're all on together.
We're all in this together.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the scaffold effect.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you found this conversation
insightful
and inspiring.
Inspiring.
Until next time.
Happy scaffolding.
Happy scaffolding.